What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Friday Brew with Calvin Tiger. Today's special guest, we have Harrison Raybuck.
Hello, how are you?
That's a very good answer. Good question, Harrison.
Yeah, it's a question that goes out, it's pretty neutral, it goes out to everyone. I guess I should have addressed everyone more clearly. How are you guys today? I'm doing pretty well. Calvin and I are just hanging out here, having a few drinks, just going to discuss random stuff. Hope you guys are into it, you know.
So the Friday Brew is a place where interesting people come to have interesting conversations. But those interesting conversations are also held over a 6-pack, in this case an 8-pack, of hodgepodge beers. It's kind of a mixture of, it's kind of mystery beers that were thrown into the fridge after a weekend of partying, so we'll see what we got, and we have to pick them at random, so... With that being said, let's go ahead and start.
What do we got? Ooh,
Bud Light Lime.
Bud Light Lime.
Not too bad.
Very slick. It's my turn to pick one.
We were drinking beforehand, as well.
Yeah. Let's see what I got. I got a can. It looks like a Miller Lite.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
2 microbrews to start off the evening with.
Bring us back to college.
Speaking of college, where did you go to school at?
I went to Columbia College in Chicago.
Is it in, like, Columbia, Chicago?
Yeah, I guess that's really the best way to phrase it, Calvin. Yeah, I don't know. It's, I think it's just such a typical, scenario for someone to be like, what, you mean Columbia, Missouri? I'm like, no, not Columbia, Missouri.
Right. Well, because they have a Columbia College.
Exactly. There's a Columbia, New York, Columbia, Missouri, so it gets a little confusing, and I have to say, no, I went to Columbia College in Chicago, so I usually have to add the word in there.
Right, in Chicago.
In Chicago, yeah, because it's Columbia College, Chicago. Technically, I think we're a university, but I mean, it just gets confusing.
Is it a satellite of the one that's in Columbia, Missouri?
I don't think so.
Or is it totally different?
I think it's its own entity in and of itself, yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I think we're a university, but then it gets really confusing because it gets confused with Columbia, New York,
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
Yeah, that's where I went, yeah.
What'd you study?
I studied film and video production, and originally I had a concentration in editing and post-production, but I just left it at film and video production just because it left me with more credits it took away a few credits so I could graduate a little bit earlier. So yeah, I guess that was the most reasonable thing, and I don't know, not that anyone's really going to look at it. So.
It's not as concentrated as you have more room to work with in that sense too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in any job interview I had, never once have they ever asked for my degree or to see the authentic, the certificate of authenticity in which I graduated with a film and video degree.
That's what's interesting is, do you watch the show Weeds?
I've never actually watched Weeds before. A lot of my friends really like it, though.
I really enjoy it, and from a cinematic standpoint, I really enjoy it. But more so writing, actually, I think. But there's a part on there where her son, who's like super intelligent, way too intelligent for being like 11 or 12, and he writes a resume for her because his mom's trying to get a job so she can stop selling pot to her suburb neighbors,
and so weed. Okay, I got you.
So he writes a resume for her, and he says okay, so what do you like? You like English? She goes, yeah, I guess. He goes, all right, English degree from, and he entered some random university, and it almost seems like you could do that because all the places I've ever applied, they asked for my resume, but I don't know that they actually did need checking or even asked if any of it was valid, or I suppose. Yeah. Or asked for any of the work that was on my resume.
Exactly. And I mean, I've never once, I don't think any of my film jobs or any of my actual editing jobs have ever actually once tried to contact my previous employer for my editing jobs. It was just kind of like, okay, you have this, okay, what can you do? Let me see your work. I mean, it was never once let me contact this person. It was more so, okay, let me see your work. And yeah, I've never had to show my degree to anyone before. In fact, I was actually, I was getting jobs before I actually received my degree a semester late because I had, one last class that I had to take that I was luckily able to take at community college. It was college algebra. It was an extra elective. yeah, man. Dominated that stuff. It was great. I was just gonna say, even beforehand, when I didn't even end up getting my degree. They didn't mail it to me until the following summer. So I guess it was really a year that I stopped going it was a year after I stopped going to Columbia that I got my degree, and I didn't. So no one's ever asked to see it before. So I was able to still get jobs, you know.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. It's almost like places will take you on your word for it.
Yeah,
which is interesting. Well, to think about.
Well, because it's like when you think about it. I mean, I want to say that you can get the only license that you can get in an art. I know there's a cinematographer's license. I'm not a cinematographer because I don't.
Like the ASC.
Yeah, I'm not a cinematographer, so I don't know a whole lot about it. But I know that like that's the one license as an artist you can get. I mean, I have a few friends who are cinematographers, and they say that Columbia will license you as a cinematographer. Besides that, it's not like there's not any legal subsidizing that goes on as you are an artist as of now. I mean, it's not like that. I mean, that's. I guess even institutions don't even work like that, you know.
Yeah, as long as you got a demo reel, you know, everything seems to work out fine. As long as your demo reel isn't super shitty.
Yeah, And
that's interesting because my demo reel, I promote myself as a director, a videographer, and even an actor in some cases. But yours is more along the lines of editing, so that's interesting to me that you can show, you can have a demo reel to focus on your editing, but if the cinematography is really good, you could have shitty editing and almost have a good demo reel.
Yeah, and I think that's what, unfortunately, a lot of editors run into. I mean, whether it be the luck of the draw or whether they're just a little, whether they didn't network with the right people or they just didn't, or they weren't exposed to the right kind of stuff. I mean, you can have great editing, but if the cinematography is awful or if you don't have good footage, I mean, it just totally sets you back. And that's something that I've really struggled with too. I mean, in my demo reel, a lot of the stuff that I got was pretty much everything that I could get my hands on, and some of it will really set me back. I mean, for example, like I remember showing my first demo reel when I was like a junior or senior in college. I can't remember. And some people would say, "Your stuff's okay. You just need to have better footage." And it's like I can't help that, you know.
You're the editor. This is what they handed me to work with.
And as an editor, you know, at any school, you kind of run into the vicious cycle of, okay, well, I really need a reel before no one's going to give me a gig until I can get a reel. But then, of course, how can you make a reel without getting a gig? So you run into that cycle, and until you get anything good, you're going to have to go with the crappy stuff first, and that involves asking people for their awful standard definition transfers from a Bolex camera, it's kind of a hassle. It really is. So
it's when you're in the film. I don't want to say industry because I don't consider myself in the film industry, but when you're in the film department of life, you really have to be DIY, and you have to be all in one. You have to be the director, the editor, the videographer. A lot of times you have to be the actor as well. You kind of have to do everything in order to have a decent looking product or something that you want to claim, especially when it comes to something like a demo reel.
Yeah, totally. Oh, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. You know, I think luckily with this generation, I mean, I'm speaking out to you guys right now. I mean, when I was in high school, the only thing anyone could have access to, the cheapest thing would be like maybe some $400, you know, standard definition handycam. You know, that's right. Handycams that were standard definition. If you remember that at all, I mean, that's what
if you had that.
That's what Calvin and I had access to. But I mean, you guys have access to really decent prosumer technology. I mean, there was no such thing as a DSLR back when we were in high school. There really wasn't. I mean, honestly, it wasn't until Calvin was maybe graduating that type of notion was ever.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, for photography, but not for video.
Right, because that was really an accident in and of itself. I mean, that was an accident that revolutionized video production, film and video production as a whole. And nowadays, the younger generation, people who are younger than us, you guys have access to that, and that now you can be more DIY and make stuff for yourself, whereas people like Calvin and I really kind of had to fight to get whatever we could get just to make some sort of demo reel.
Yeah, I used to have a JVC Handycam, and I would always have somebody record our track meets because we'd watch them back and look at watch our running form, that type of thing. But I also used that to make short films, my shorts, and I was at a track meet and I dropped my camera off like the bleachers. And it was really sturdy. The only thing that and it was a little red one. It was like this big.
Yeah.
But the only thing that happened that was really wrong with it was like pretty much the like lenses, not the lens itself, but the mirror inside was just kind of crooked. So like it kind of like knocked out of place. No. So the lighting was just like the aperture was all messed up.
No.
So I take it up to Creve Coeur Camera and I'm like talking to the guy there, and he must have been new. He must not have known what he was talking about, or he might have just been like super aristocratic. I don't know. But I have this little JVC Handycam I got for Christmas, probably like $200, $300 camera.
When did you get it? Like what year was this?
This was in like 2008.
Okay, right.
So,
of course.
So this is like probably like the only thing I could get my hands on at the time without spending an arm and a leg.
Of course.
And I take it up to Creve Coeur Camera and I tell the guy I dropped off the bleachers, like something wrong with the aperture, the mirror, or something, like it's just not getting light. Like there's just in the daylight, it's like looks like it's nighttime. It's so dark. Right. And he was like, well, what? We got to talking and said, well, I'm going into school for studying film, and he looks at me and goes, you know what I would do, man? I would just wait for the red. It's coming out in like 2 months.
That's right. That's. Oh my god.
Yeah, it was like the summer of 2009 is when the red came out.
That's right. That's when,
and my gosh. At the time, I was pretty ignorant to the whole film culture, and I had no idea what the red was. But I had my JVC camera was red, so I was like, oh, okay, what's the red? And he was telling me about it. I was like, oh, okay. What about how much would that cost? And he told me the price, and I was like, what? Why would you even suggest that? And when the red first came out, it was like what, $50,000, something like that.
Yeah, I mean for the body itself.
Yeah, for the body, it was like $25,000 for the body.
It was the red one, because that's right. I remember hearing, I heard about that right away, because at Columbia, there just wasn't. That was kind of right when prosumer technology was sort of paving its way to starting to become available, and it wasn't even available then. So really, before prosumer technology became available, it was all about the red, and it was like around late 2008, early 2009 when it started to actually kind of come to the surface, and then people started hearing about it, like what is this camera, and they're like, oh, it's like $40,000-$50,000. And it's like, what? It was. Yeah, the red was like that was just a whole new that was another, even though it really wasn't prosumer at all.
Yeah, no,
it totally revolutionized. Oh my gosh,
yeah.
It's so crazy that you bring that up. Wow,
It was a strange situation, and because I was like 18, and I was so excited about learning film, and it was like the spring, so I was about to graduate high school, and he just drops that on me, and I was like, well,
why don't you get the red?
Yeah, I would just wait for the red. And so my camera was red. I was like, oh, is this like an updated version of like this JVC Handycam that I have? Like,
that's awesome.
It's like what, $300, $400?
I totally forgot your camera was red. I forgot that part of the story.
Yeah. And then I was like, I walked out of there scratching my head, like, what did he even tell me just now? I don't even know. And so I never got that camera fixed, and yeah, it was.
That's hilarious. So he actually said I would just wait for the red. So you could upgrade from your $300 camera to like a $50.
Yeah, so that's why I was like, and so now I look back on it, like, now that I have information, I am educated in it, I was thinking, was he just being aristocratic? Like, being like, I would just wait for the red, because I'm a film guy, and that's what I talk about. Or was he, like, didn't know what he was talking about? Because at that point, in Creve Coeur Camera, he could have made a sale probably off me,
Yeah.
And he just said, go with this $50,000 camera, this $25,000 camera.
Whatever. I mean, do you remember how old he looked? Like, was he like art?
I remember he's probably socially awkward, so that's why I think like
really?
maybe he was just like trying to prove he knows something about film.
Sure, of course.
Because I said I was going to study film, but I didn't know anything about film because I was going to study it. That's why I was going to study it, was to learn about it.
Could have been one of those scenarios where it was like maybe like a long day, and he was just trying to get rid of a customer, kind of one of those types of things.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. That's that's interesting. That's so funny though. He just said he just said
upgrade to this $50,000 camera or whatever.
Well, I just love it how your camera was red.
Yeah, so as being 18, I have no idea what the red was.
Oh, man.
I was totally. It was just like, and so he said, I would just wait for the red, and I was like, okay, I'm not familiar with that, but how much I mean, how much is that? And he was
That's
like,
quite a jump.
like 25, like 100 grand. What? 50 grand, whatever his answer was. It was somewhere that, like, when he said it, I was just like jaw on the floor. Like, no way, dude. What?
I don't know. That's an interesting strategy for any salesman to make. Like, it's quite a jump.
Maybe he thought that, it's like, hey, Dad, can I borrow $50? What do you need 25 for? Well, I need 10 to go to the movies, and then you get $10 out. You know that? Maybe it's like that type of. I don't know.
Of course.
I don't know.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because the Red really, it was the guy who owned, I don't know, forgive me for sounding unintelligent here, I'm just going off memory. It was the guy who owned Oakley, who sold Oakley sunglasses, who sold the company, right? And I think that's...
I have no knowledge on, like, the Red's origins or anything. I just know its capabilities and...
Of course. Like I said, I could be totally wrong and I apologize. It's been a while. But just going to say, yeah, because the Red 1 really surfaced around 2008, 2009, and a friend of mine from Bethalto actually directed one of his first big short films that was shot on the Red, actually.
Yeah.
And from then on, Columbia really started using the Red like crazy, and then the Red was a huge thing. But then, luckily for people who aren't quite, Red material, or don't have the Red money, prosumer technology like the DSLRs came out, and that made life a lot easier for many people.
So I'm still pretty uneducated in that even. So like, the Red came out, and that was like the first like smaller camera that shot in HD and 60 FPS and everything,
and that could pass for a film look, basically.
Okay,
like a true
and so
film look,
so after that came out, then the other companies started putting out the HDSLRs in an attempt to, or maybe like the technology was just finally ready.
I think it was a combination of both, because I really think it. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it was definitely. I don't think. I can't imagine anyone ever planning that to happen. I mean, I'm sure it was partially like, cosmic, but I mean, yeah, it's crazy because, I mean, right around when that happened, people started shooting on these DSLRs, and so many, I think a lot of people were like, oh, no, you can't do that. No one, I don't think a lot of people took it seriously just because they saw these, little photo cameras thinking, oh, they're just shooting, AVI files off of like a Nikon or something like that.
Right.
And no one took it seriously for a while, but then it just blew up. So
and I'm so thankful for it.
Oh yeah,
it's like,
so
seriously,
so
this camera that we're filming on right now, it's a Sony A65. I think the body was about $799. I bought it like the month it came out too, so I bought it brand new. I think the body now is like $699, $599, something like that.
Right,
It's been a year, so obviously dropped $200. And I think for like a kit plus an f1.8 lens and a bag and some filters and whatnot, it was like $1150 for what we're shooting on now, and that's been the greatest thing that's happened to me as far as film wise. And that and taking a photography class were the two best things that happened. Like, I had the theories, the ideas, the angles, the shots. But it wasn't until I took a photography class, worked with HDSLRs, and then got my own, that my work went from being like subpar to being at least par, or a little bit more fantastic than people would expect.
Sure. Now, was this in... hold on, so...
This was in the last year. I got this camera like 9 months ago.
Okay, gotcha, right.
And that photography class was my last semester of college that I did that. So Bob Elliott was the professor that taught that class, and without him, I wouldn't have gotten a DSLR in all reality. So I wouldn't have the things that I have now if it weren't for that photography class.
So Bob Elliott. Thanks, Bob Elliott.
I'll have to tag him. Yeah, so appreciate that.
Yeah, very nice.
Harrison, tell me a little bit more about editing. The parts of editing that you're passionate about.
Well, so I guess
and that's what you do. That's what you do full time.
Yes, that's what I do full time. In fact, I got my first full time job in Chicago. Actually, I'm moving up there in about a week. So yeah, that's editing is what I do full time. So I think what I love about editing so much is, I guess it really comes down to the fact that I've always considered myself to be a fairly sensitive person who can sense emotions pretty well, or who can sense feelings, or who has a fairly decent understanding of human psychology. And I think what editing really is just detecting certain psychological beats in a moment, or in a conversation, or in some small moment or some big moment where you can choose to cut, from shot to shot where it feels appropriate, or where it emotionally feels right. And I think that's really what most great films have, is the timing and the correct pacing that it needs to depict some sort of message, and to detect those psychological beats where okay, if I cut here, it's gonna play out a little better, where as opposed to if I cut here. So I mean, really, what it comes down to is finding those psychological beats, like the pulse of some sort of message you're trying to deliver, and delivering that message, and kind of finding when a beat works and when it doesn't work. That's just, there's nothing more rewarding than that. So I love, and so really, it's just finding different ways to detect those beats and to tell stories. So and I'm not picky either. I'm not someone who's just only going to settle for editing this type of thing or editing this type of thing. I like to edit all types of things. So even if it's just editing a small corporate video, or if it's editing a short film, I love all types of editing. So that's really what it comes down to. I love storytelling. So
it's an interesting form of storytelling. I'll tell you one type of editing that I cannot stand. That's like cubism. So it's like when things are shown 3 times. So like the movie Triple X. So there's like a scene where Vin Diesel's on like a motorbike, and he like jumps over a fence. And it's like, or like there's like sparks flying and shit, and he like jumps. And it's like shows him here, then a different angle, shows him here, then a different angle, shows him here, and then finally shows him landing. And I'm like, no, just show it one time. Like, I cannot stand that type of editing, and I see it all the time.
That's funny.
And if I see it in a movie, I'm just like, it's Friday, fuck it, like, throw your papers up in the air, like, it's so, oh man.
It does get a little irritating, I mean, especially when you're seeing just a silly
it's the same thing 3 times in a row.
It's just, I think it's irritating when you're obviously seeing something that's just eye candy based, and it's just, if you see, The Rock's. You good?
Yeah, we got a little bit of time.
Cool. When you see when you see Dwayne Johnson's muscles 3 times, when you see something that's purely eye candy just for the sake of showing eye candy, 3 times in a row, or it just kind of gets redundant. Yeah, I can understand that. No, I totally.
And most people don't pick up on it. And I think the reason I pick up on it, I know what it is because I studied it. But I think if I didn't study it, I'd still be like taken aback by it a little bit. Maybe rub a little bit wrong. Like it would just take me out of the moment pretty much. Yes. And I know for a lot of people it does do that type of editing, but it's just not linear to see something 3 times like.
Well, and I think it's okay to be out of the moment to some extent, but it almost it's almost too distracting.
Yeah, no, and that's how it is for me in that sense. But I'm a film guy, you're a film guy, so it's easy for us to pick something apart.
It is, it really is, and especially a lot of those, a lot of that type of editing. Typically, that type of editing and films that I'm not a huge fan of go hand in hand. It seems like those action flicks, those just cheesy, silly, movies that don't really have a lot of substance. They seem to go hand in hand, So it's typically kind of an eye candy thing. It's kind of a visual effect type of thing. But yeah, that can be a little annoying sometimes too. Where it's like one of my favorite video games. I was a basketball player in high school. I mean, basketball was one of my favorite sports, and NBA Street was like one of my favorite video games, and I just as soon as you talked about
whenever they do a dunk, it's like 3 times in a row.
For the game breakers.
For the game breakers.
Well, especially Yeah, right. Well, especially when your brother's the one beating you, and he just got a game breaker, and he gained 2 points, and you lose 2 points because of it's street ball. You know, that's the worst because it's like, hold on, just get past this because I'm already losing and I'm pissed off right now.
You gotta watch
So, no, that's the worst. Whenever you get scored on, you see the 3 shit.
Exactly.
That's the worst. It really is. So I totally sympathize.
I'm pretty sure it's called like cubism or cubist editing.
Really, I've never heard that cubist editing.
We spent like 1 day talking about it.
Huh.
Probably because it's really shitty and we just needed to be aware of it anyway.
Just really shitty.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. If you're at home right now, you got about 5 seconds until I cut this and then we're back at it. So go ahead and pause it if you want to, but we'll be back in a moment.